Hello and welcome. I am Annette Reeder from thebiblicalnutritionist.com, and it's Q&A Monday. I love these days. I love answering your questions because it just gives me a chance to understand what's going on in your life, how I can help you get to the next level of being healthy and being on mission for God. Remember, I serve God's recipe for excellent health, and that means I'm here for you. So today's questions are all about making bread and flour. So let's get started on our questions. Question number one, how much olive oil and salt do you add to make the unleavened bread? This was submitted by Sandra. Okay, I love this question. I love it anytime people are referring to unleavened bread. So let me share with you the recipe. It's 2 cups of flour, and I want you to be creative with the flour. Try spelt, kamut, amaranth, and even try oat flour. To that, we're going to add 3/4 a cup of cold water, 2 tablespoons of olive oil or an avocado oil, and then add a pinch of salt. I know a lot of people do not cook with the words pinch and a tab and things like that. I do. So a pinch, and actually this is kind of fun, in some of the antique stores and some of the cooking stores, they actually have measuring spoons that say pinch or a tab. And so it's kind of fun. So a pinch would be about 1/4 of a teaspoon. And as you make that, if you're like, that's just not enough flavor, then you might want to add it, move it up to a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And that would be really good. Now, let me just ask you too, what about adding other flavors, other herbs, other spices? The easy one is cinnamon and nutmeg. You could add in some pumpkin pie spice. You could add some apple pie spice. You could add, in more savory, you could add fresh herbs. You could do ground up onions, some crushed garlic. You could do so many different things with your unleavened bread just to make it whatever flavor you want. The most important part is having time with the Lord in the morning with your unleavened bread as part of the devotion, or maybe you're serving it as part of a pizza crust, and that's really good too. So thank you for asking this question. Question number 2, is there a huge difference between the Nutrimill and the Nutrimill Plus? Can one grind finer than the other? This was submitted by Poolahpot. So the answer is they're both fabulous machines. I used my Nutrimill Classic for over 10 years. It just did everything I needed to do. It was really good. A couple times I ended up with flour on me and in my pantry, but okay, that happens if you don't pay attention. But yes, they both mill grain. They can both be adjusted to coarse and fine. So they're very simple to use. They're very dependable machines, and I highly recommend both of them. Question number 3, can I eat unleavened bread on the Daniel fast? And this was submitted by Ebony. My answer is yes. Now others are going to say absolutely no bread at all. Well, you know, if you're looking at processed bread, then yes, I say you do not want that on the Daniel fast. It's going to interfere with your microbiome. It's going to interfere with your mental focus. But we're talking about milling your own grain and making your own unleavened bread. I see unleavened bread as a chance to get together for a devotion with God. I see it more than just a bread product. And so yes, in my Daniel fast, I do allow unleavened bread that I've made. Now, just realize the Daniel fast, and I say this over and over and over, is not about food rules. It's about relationship. When we change our food rules, which is okay, and you say, okay, for 21 days, I'm not going to eat processed food, I'm not going to eat sweets, I'm not going to have honey, I'm not going to have, processed food includes bread, but I am going to have vegetables, I'm going to have fruits, and I'm going to have some oils, and I'm going to have some unleavened bread. If that's the rules that you set up, that's fine. Just stick to it for 21 days. You will be amazed at how good you feel, and when you take time out to change your eating, it causes you to pause and reflect, and that's where we want to build that relationship with God. So this is a really good question. Remember, it's not about the food rules, it's about the relationship. Our next question says, does your grain mill work for things like garbanzo beans? Also, I need my white and brown rice flour to come out super fine. Will it do that in just one milling using your grain mill, or do I have to do it several times? This was submitted by Lisa, and I also want to thank you, Lisa, for this question. It's a good question. As you know, I'm used to using the Nutrimill. I've used it for so many years, and I've switched over to the mock mill. The mock mill is a different milling process. And so for garbanzo beans, which are also called chickpeas, you will have to do a second milling, but it all depends on how fine you want that flour. Now you're talking about super fine. I will tell you that when I do it a second time, it actually is more fine than when I did it one time through the Nutrimill. Now, as you know, with the Nutrimill Plus, you can't put flour through a second time and make it more fine. What you get the first time is what you work with. Now, you could also get a sifter. I've used a pastry sifter to get the fine flour to come through and the bran to stay out of whatever I'm making if I want to make it really light and fluffy, and that would be good too. But with the mock mill, I'm going to put 2 videos down below, one on how to mill chickpeas and one on how to mill flour. And that way it'll show you how to set the settings to get the finest flour. So these are really good questions, and I appreciate your inquisitiveness on looking into the grains and the breads and all of these questions. So remember, I am Annette Reeder, the Biblical Nutritionist from thebiblicalnutritionist.com, but I almost forgot to share with you. Many of you aren't aware that I have a cookbook called Satisfied Baking with Whole Grain Goodness. And it has a lot of these answers in it. What it also has is some of my very favorite recipes, especially my holiday recipes. Now, one of them is called Russian black rye bread. Now, you may think, oh, I don't think I could do that. Okay, if you serve this to your guests, they're going to think they're at some exquisite restaurant in some, chalet. It's just a very delicious recipe. I also use it as croutons. So I will take, a part of the loaf and make croutons out of it, and that makes a delicious topping to every salad. So I just have a lot of my favorite freshly milled grain recipes in this. It's just a small cookbook, very handy, very colorful, and it's just a delight to read. Lots of good information besides the recipes. So I just want to remind you, Satisfied Baking with Whole Grain Goodness, you could get it at Amazon. And remember, when you get a book of mine from Amazon, leave a review with your name on it, or a name that we can identify you with. Because on our podcast, Biblical Nutrition Academy, every Saturday we give away prizes up to $100, and we draw the names from those who have left reviews, both on our podcast and on our Amazon books. So I look forward to seeing your review there after you get this book and try it out. Okay, thanks for watching, and be sure and give it a thumbs up if you like it, and share this video with your church, your Bible study group, your friends, your family, because I want to share God's recipe with excellent health, and I want to do it with you. Thanks for watching.